What do you think about what's going on at Indianapolis? We heard that Greg Joseph had a big day, 4 for 4. Any other news that you've heard?
Yeah, I've heard they're still rotating the right guard situation, which is interesting to me this far along, going into the second preseason game. It seems to be that position that we wrote about in OTAs and minicamp as a concern, and the rotating players, they do not have an answer at that spot yet.
Why is it that these guys just aren't as good as they thought, or is somebody injured, or are they just trying to make the competition even tougher? What's going on over there? Because it seems at this point, almost at the midway point now of the exhibition season, it makes you wonder why it's so hard to find the one guy who's been consistent.
I lean toward it being a bigger problem than being like a head-to-head great competition, meaning that nobody stood out. Freddie Kitchens has been pretty vocal about the fact that nobody has stood out in that position. They want somebody to seize that role, and we haven't seen it yet. It seems like Eric-Kush has had the front running for that job. He's noted that he had a pretty good year in pass protection last year, but he just in the first preseason game was off balance a couple times, driven into the backfield, and I'm just not sure he has the base and kind of core strength that's necessary to really, really play an effective right guard role, especially in the run game too. And then Austin-Corbett has seemed to be pigeonholed as the backup center. They don't like what they've seen from him, and have kind of eliminated him, himself from the competition. And then Kyle Kalis has been weeded out as well. So it seems like it's Kush. I know they worked in Drew Forbes today with the first team I was reading, and unfortunately I couldn't make it over to Indy to see it myself, but I read that they put Kendall-Lamm, who's that sort of swing tackle that they signed out of Houston, in there as well. So it just seems like they're trying to figure out who it's going to be. Eric-Kush is the front runner, and I'm still not panicked about this spot, but it does seem like it's somewhere that they are very unsettled on.
Jake, Ross Tucker was on 92.3 talking about the offensive line and expressed some real concerns that it's more than just the right guard position to him. He doesn't like the depth. He's not sure Greg Robinson has done enough to allay all these concerns. Do you have any of the same concerns?
It's tough. I've been asked this question a lot because it's a good question. I think if you're looking at where the Browns could have potential weaknesses this year, I think you could easily point to offensive line, and it's super justifiable. I think that you're looking at Greg Robinson, who just before the 10 games, or maybe not even 10, might have been 9 games that he was brought in last year and started for the Browns, he was a really big disappointment and considered by many, and justifiably so, a bust. Chris-Hubbard at right tackle was very inconsistent early in the year, but in the second half of the year, you have to feel good about how the coaching staff was able to mitigate some of those issues, how Baker Mayfield adjusted his game, stepping up, stepping out of the pocket, using his feet to create time for throws, also getting rid of the ball quickly, and some of the scheme things they did with running backs helping out and blocking occasionally, and then tight ends staying and chipping. Here's my official stance on it, and I've talked about it a couple times. I'm not going to be concerned until I see a reason to be concerned. You could look at any team in the NFL and you could point out where you think issues are. It's super easy to look at the offensive line and say this could be an area of downfall, but you have to think that they were graded out as the second best offensive line according to Pro Football Focus last year. Now that's with Kevin Zeitler at right guard, so that area is sort of a question mark, and I think that the group as a total is a question mark, but James Campen is an improvement as an offensive line coach. I still think you have a quarterback who's coming into his own in terms of figuring out how to work with an offensive line, and I continue to say that the group just needs to be average. If they can be like the 15th best offensive line, you can get by with that, especially with really dynamic skill talent and your quarterback who can mitigate some of those issues. So I think that's an area that the future John Dorsey is going to address, going to spend assets on fixing. But, as of now, I don't think anybody should be concerned about anything other than, once you see it become an issue. Because in week 1, it wasn't an issue. They went right down the field. They had good protection, and they scored a quick strike touchdown. So until it becomes an issue, a noticeable issue, I don't think it's worth spending and wasting breath.
Jake, I think you made a great point that if you go to every team, they've got a weakness somewhere along the line. The Browns obviously have strengths, but their weakness apparently is the line. But according to the Ross Tucker piece that Bud's referring to, how many teams can go 7 or 8 deep? I don't think they can at the line position.
Well, I think that's a good point, Les, and I think it's something that's not talked about enough, is that there are truly not enough good offensive linemen anymore. You see a lot of these guys who are really good athletes in high school and then get into college, and they're taught to use supreme athletic ability to get after the passer, because those are the guys who really make waves, and the guys who really get into the NFL and make big time money are guys who can get after the quarterback and use that athleticism. And as young kids have been developed more in sort of the spread systems in high school, they're not taught traditional lineman skills. Then they go to college and they're playing in more wide open schemes. And then they're asked to do different things in the NFL, things they weren't necessarily asked to do 20 years ago coming through the ranks. You're seeing less and less quality offensive linemen. And if you look at almost every offensive line across the NFL, they maybe go 5 deep, but they don't go very deep after that. So the situation kind of becomes, where there's a few teams with great offensive lines. The Eagles are one of those teams, but it's slim picking. So you're just hoping you have a scheme, an offensive coordinator, and a quarterback who can kind of mitigate those things.
And you hope there's no injuries.